Yes, good morning. First, maybe some words about why I'm here in front of you. I come from companies, and I teach management innovation in École Centrale de Paris, which is the leading French school for engineers. And so, as you notice, I do not come from art and culture. I do come from the company world. And it was clear for me since '92 that art and culture is a key issue for companies. And I wrote a book, the name of which in French is Stratégie pour un futur souhaitable, which developed that idea. And the book was had a foreword by Pascal Lamy, who is the general director of l'Organisation mondiale du commerce, WTO. I'm deeply convinced that, yes, art, company must have relation with art and culture, and that it's a key issue. And I want to explain as clearly as possible to you why. And I will even go a step further. As I told yesterday to Jürgen, Thomas, Carol, and this morning to Ronald, it's so important that I'm ready to write what I will say now to you so that that document could be useful to you concerning your relations with our company partners in your cities, to help you convince them to work actively with you. Now, why? Yes, it's a key issue for companies to have close relation with art and culture. It's a key issue because now we are in a completely new economic environment. And that new economic environment precisely is new because precisely of the reason which was pointed out by Professor Kunzmann. Acceleration. That's the key word. So there is an accelerating speed of evolution of technology. I was working in an electronic company, so maybe you know it also, the power of electronic doubles every 18 months. Every 18 months, the power of electronic doubles, which means that technology, to make it simple, doubles its power every 18 months, which means, to make it simple, that the potential offer double 18 months. But the problem is that organizations, human culture, human spirit cannot double efficiency every 18 months. You cannot double efficiency of education within 18 months. You cannot change an organization in 18 months. Therefore, that means that in the third period, to make it simple, demand was clearly ahead of offer. Just after the war, and I speak here in Germany, it was obvious that there was a need for house, for transport, for energy. So the key issue for companies was just to product. But after some time, the two curves became closer. And the question was, what really wants the market? And the key issue moved from production to marketing. But then the two curves became closer and closer. And we spoke about quality, intangible. But precisely, roughly about the year 90, il y a eu un basculement, a shift. And offer precedes demand, creates demand. And now, as we know, as we hear every day, the key issue is innovation. But in the innovative process, as we say, offer is creative. So nowadays, company creates demand. It's completely different. And it has huge consequences. Constraints, managerial constraints, become much tougher. Before, and I wrote it in gray, when you were in a predictable environment, demand is ahead of you. You can forecast. And after having forecast, you act. Now, since you create demand, you can no longer forecast precisely. You have to undertake, and in spite of uncertainty. And before, as you could forecast, you could say, okay, I will give such resource for the project, and the task was just to adjust. But since now you have to start with extremely limited resources, the point is no longer to adjust, it's to dynamize, which is much more complex. So managerial constraints are tougher. But there is another consequence concerning responsibility of companies. Before, when their job was just to produce what is needed, their responsibility was just to produce according to existing laws and existing moral points. Now, they create demand. They create the future. Their responsibility is completely different. Which means, logically, and what I want to say is that what I say to you today was clear for me in '92, just after a question which was asked to me by the planning division of the Thomson Group. I was deputy manager of human resource in that large electronic company in France. I've succeeded doing an innovation which was thought it was impossible. And then the question was, Philippe, we have technologies, what we can do with these technologies? So, and in 3 days, what I developed now to you was clear to me. Before, company used to guide the action by demand, which was ahead of them and stable. They were guided by an external index, external. And now, it can no longer work because they create demand. And managerial constraints are tougher, as I said. Technological cycles are shorter, and it's more and more difficult. So more than ever, company needs to have a stable and dynamism course. But that course, it must go from themselves. It cannot be external, it's from themselves. It's the will to contribute to a desirable future. What's more stable and what's more dynamizing than such an aim? Is it clear? And second, concerning their responsibility. Before, as I said, it was just to respect existing laws and existing morals. Once more, something external to them. Now, they produce. They have to decide what kind of products they will develop. So they must have a will to contribute to a desirable future. What kind of product can I do according to my business, my activity, to help that sort of future? So that leads to ethics. Company leaders, company must now have ethics. And that's a key point. Aesthetic is the first step for ethics. And business in gray, the old world. What does that mean, business? That means the state of being busy. That means moving for moving. No meaning, just moving. That can no longer carry on. It's just not possible for the reason which I explained. So it's absolutely necessary. If companies want really to have ideas to contribute to a desirable future, if they want to innovate with ethics, it's absolutely necessary that they think out of the box of business. They really gain to organize interrelations, cross-fertilizations with artists and liberal arts, which means that it's not only being in the same area, it's having leaders and people from companies discussing, working, exchanging ideas. The issue is to open the brain of people from companies. Now, if we go back to what is desirable future, it's quite easy to have some ideas. 3 axes. The first one, what is desirable is try to develop persons. It goes in the same direction of the first pillar of what is called sustainable development. As you may know, sustainable development, its first pillar is economic development. But when you say the point is not to develop economy, but to develop persons, it's more precise. And in fact, it do corresponds to the present reflections in the world. I mean, shifting from gross national product to human development index. So I do not develop, it's quite clear. The second point is try to develop reciprocal relations between, and positive and enriching between people and groups. It's clear that it has relation with the second pillar of sustainable development, which is social development. But it's more clear also. What kind of society do you want to build? And when you say we want to build a society where there are enriching and reciprocal relations between groups and people, it's more precise. It's more precise. And today we are in Nuremberg. And so I want to quote the Frankfurt Schule, l'école de Francfort, Habermas, with precisely one person who pointed out the importance of relations for the development of each one of us. That's clear. That's the third aspect which I really want to point out. It's the absolute necessity to develop positive relations with the whole of environment and whole environment. Obviously, that has to do with the third pillar of sustainable development, environment development. But the point is not only to preserve environment, figures, CO2, fossil energy, numbers, blah, blah, blah. It's to respect nature. And Professor Kunstmann told us about Italy. But when in Tuscany, a tree is in that place, I am speaking to Italian people. In Tuscany, when a tree is that place, it's more beautiful for the nature. It's more beautiful for the people. It's not the question of CO2. It's respect of nature and yourself. But that leads to a point, which is that you have to be sensitive to what is not measurable. Beauty is not measurable. And there is another point, which is the question of being sensitive to the depth of time. Not only to the instant, but what about the future and what about the past? these 2 points are so important that I will explain. The reason of these 2 points is very simple. The more powerful technology is, the more we are induced to see reality only through what technology can do. And technology is figures. So we are induced to see from reality only what can be figured. C'est un rétrécissement. C'est un abaissement. And we're leaving civilization. And the more technology is powerful, the more in a click you can do everything. Time is reduced. And it's so reduced that you have no longer time to think. And it's just emotion. So time is, we are living in a world of flash of emotion. It's Pavlov. The more technology develops, the more we are induced to be changed in, the translator gave me the name, Pavlovian dogs. That means that we as humans actively need, consciously, to act as much as possible to counterbalance these very huge and powerful trends, which were clearly pointed, the danger of them were pointed out by Professor Kunzmann. By all means. And one of the means is to give to the products an aesthetical and cultural dimension. It's not utopia. It's not utopia. Look at the reason why Apple had its success. Steve Jobs did not want to develop innovation for the sake of technology. Not even have products which were easy to use. He really wanted to have products which were aesthetic and elegant. And that's the reason of the start of the success of Apple. So what I propose is really feasible. But now there is another point. I said at the beginning that managerial constraints are much tougher. That means that now it's absolutely necessary to manage in a different way. Concerning means of action, the classical means of action before was exchange relation. You work for me, you will do that job, and I will give you that money. You give me that piece, I will give you that money. Do you want my pen? I will give you the pen, you will pay that money. Exchange relations. That can no longer work, very simply, because exchange relations means that the terms of relation are very precise and equilibrated. Since now we are in a completely unpredictable environment, and in companies, I cannot say what will happen to you as an employee. And so exchange relation can no longer work. The new mode of relation, which really allows innovation to be, and good innovation to be developed, are alliances relation. It's much different. You and me, we share the same aim. It's not binary, it's ternary. You and me are sharing the same aim. And then we will give our energy. There is the question of dynamism. Now there is another point concerning criteria of decisions. Before, I will choose solution A instead of solution B, because solution A, the difference between cost and benefits was larger. The criteria was to maximize a difference for one result. I want to have that result, solution A. I have a larger difference, I choose solution A. That criteria of decision can no longer work because you just don't know what will be the result. And I want to go back to something. What I expressed to you is not my ideas. It's the result of a very pragmatic analysis of how extremely powerful innovation, which are now recognized all over the world, and which are recognized as extremely good for the future, has been created. For example, I analyzed how Mohammed Yunus succeeded to create the Grameen Bank, while at the beginning everyone said it's just impossible. So after analyzing how he succeeded, that's the lesson which I derived. So the point is that the criteria is completely different. I will choose the solution which allows to get as many different results which are multiplier effect. It's completely different, which means that before, when the question was just to maximize a difference, it was a reasoning which could allow you to get that result. Now, if you want to find a solution which at the same time offers many different opportunities, it's imagination. Imagination is the mental process which allows you to concentrate. So since now the question of relations and also imagination become a key issue, it's obvious that the more managers have relations with artists, the more they can be at ease to manage that way. C'est clair? And developing interrelations with artists and audiences, as you see, is a mean to better attain objectives of the company. But remind that relations between different people was an aim. So you see that question of relation between people of company and people and artists are a mean to develop and also in line with what finally you want to get. There is another point, which is that now company, for many reasons, need to help each employee to really be as developed as possible. Before, the ancient economy, I would say, was defined by the question of coupure, separation. You have objective on one side and today on the other side. You have the work and business on one side and family life and personal life on another side. You have tomorrow. Tomorrow will be great, but today it's sacrifice, separation. For many reasons, I have no time. It's extremely important now that there is a linkage, coherence, relations between everything. So between objectives and means, and between tomorrow and today, which means that company needs to organize these interrelations also for the sheer development of their employees now. And remind that development of persons was an aim in itself. And in conclusion, the key issue for companies to have an artistic and cultural dimension is in all their dimension. So I repeat, concerning strategy is coming from business to aesthetic and ethics. Concerning the question of products, it's necessary to design products which have aesthetic and cultural dimension. Concerning the mode of management, I was clear. And finally, last but not least, it's the sheer mode of action of company which is changed. It's the sheer definition of company which is changed. It's the sheer meaning of the word company which is changed. Before, the word company meant business. Company, business. It's extremely restricted. And the mode of action was restricted. And separation, and I repeat, now, for all the reasons which I developed, companies should act with the full meaning of what a real human company is, which is people being together now, people being together now, and sharing an ambitious project, which is build a desirable future. So that's my final aim. It's very important for all the reasons which I developed that company really develop themselves, and you should be able to convince company leaders in that direction, because they will be more proud, more happy in their personal life to go in that direction. And what you are doing is of extreme importance.